If you have ever wondered how I make certain decisions regarding tempo and movement for the music I'm playing, this is the right video for you. In this video I'm going to take you to Mozart Sonata number 4, E flat major, Köchelverzeichnis 282, third movement, and we see how we come with the tempo that I've chosen for the recording. Let's go. So it's this piece. In case you've not heard, the recording on YouTube has been released a few days ago. I'll put a link in the video here and in the description box below, so you can check it out. Before we dive into that, I must say that if I practice music, I perform music, I develop an idea of how I'm going to play the music. It's something, of course, that after many years of experience with this music, with Bach's music, I mean with 18th century music in general, that you develop a kind of taste, and that's for every musician an individual thing. You base on habit, on what you're used to hear, what you're used to play, on study, research. You have input from other musicians, but there is a time where you start playing pieces and you immediately connect to us. There's triggering a kind of experience system that very easily and very fast guides you to a certain tempo that feels right. And the tempo is important. In fact, I should rephrase it. The tempo in itself is totally not important. It's redundant. I mean, the tempo is only important in a way that it's the only thing that you really can measure. The movement, which is below the tempo, is way more important. And in the movement, you find a kind of you have to find a kind of perpetuum mobile movement, so that when you start playing a piece, whatever tempo you choose, that all the breaks, all the building stones of your performance, accentuation, phrasing, articulation, the effect you want, so the emotional content, so to say, of the piece, that's all there. And changing the movement, which happens very brutally by changing the tempo, even slightly, we can demonstrate it, is having a large effect on everything you want to do with the piece. So all those things combined, balanced, so to say, give you a tempo which is only one fragment, but the thing that you can measure. So rather than finding a right tempo, I would say one has to find a right movement for the piece, and that's an individual thing. Some will base it on, as I said, habit, taste, things they like, things they like in performances. Other will research a little bit in notation, in metronome numbers and things like that. But at the end, whatever tempo you choose, it's the movement who decides the performance, in my opinion. So let's find out the movement. And to guide you through that process, I will break it down in as many pieces as I can within the time frame of 10-15 minutes, because I could talk a whole day with you about this. It's incredibly interesting and it's incredibly important. Once you hit the movement right, nothing can go wrong. And it is even more important than that. Once you hit the movement right, actually literally nothing can go wrong, because there is a kind of feeling of proceeding, of going forward in the music. Not saying that you should find a movement in which you have this tension, this bow of tension like you would have in late 19th century music, that with the tempo rubato over several lines guide you through the music. No, this is a metrical system in the 18th century. You have to find peace and rest in the heavy beat and in the light beat. And once all those layers are in place and this machine has started, this movement has started, it's always circular movements, nothing can go wrong. You have hit the most important thing I believe you can hit, that's finding the right movement. If you wonder, yeah, that's okay, but how to break it down in as many pieces as you can, because I'm always struggling with that. Where do I start? You have so many different performances, so I do that with you. If you are playing music from Mozart, Bach in the 18th century, Beethoven, a good thing I think to start is from the tempo ordinario. The tempo ordinario is 60. There are several sources for that, and we will cover that in future videos over time. 60 for the second, So 60 is the second. So 60 for the quarter note here in the 2/4 bar structure is a good way to start. So the second, I take my phone. Let's see. It's a normal, it's a tempo feel that many have. You see, a little bit faster. So that's the tempo ordinario. And if you ever have teach to children, you will be amazed that almost all of them, if you don't guide them in playing faster or slower, and they manage to play the notes, they will instinctively find the second. That's something that's really related to our human system, and it's not by accident that that is such an important number. So 60 for the normal tempo ordinario, which would be a 4/4 bar structure with a normal harmonic pattern, so not too dense, with a note value structure that would have 16th notes as the fastest. So all depends from there on whether you have dense harmony structure or more or faster note values. If you see here in this piece, we have a very open structure. There's nothing strange about that. It's not like in an adagio movement you would have with all 30-second notes and things like that. So it's open. If you then take 60 as a point of departure, we will see it's too slow. You will feel it. We just try it. It's a little bit boring. I mean, I'm boring not in the sense that you could not find this perpetuum mobile, but the effect of the piece, and there's a second thing, what is the piece expressing? It's more joyful. This, if you play it as a tempo ordinario, it's very serious. Now I'm going to increase the tempo a little bit. Mozart indicates allegro, which is not much faster than the tempo ordinario, it's a little bit faster. And there's of course always a range, not only in the notation, not only in the mind of the composer, but also in your mind as a musician. So it's up to you. So we're just going to step up a little bit tempo and listen what happens to the effect. That's a young child running. This is a man of my age reflecting on life. This. He's joyful. We can increase the tempo a little bit more and have a listen what happened then. It's running. It's not walking joyful over the fields, now it's running, the child. So just in the few first bars, by playing, starting from the tempo ordinario, you hear increasing the tempo because Mozart indicates allegro, how huge the effect is on the effect is on the affect. So the effect on the emotional, how should I say, it's not emotion, but the affect is maybe not to translate into English. So what's a piece about actually? So and then you have to choose what you want. Want you see a running child, or want you see a walking child, or just a child that's playing on its own or with friends? I'm not joking here. It's really a feel, and you translate that feeling into whatever you want. For me, often that are colors, and it's even difficult for me to say what color grading it is. Here it would be something greenish, but you can have a concrete image for you. You hear it. So tempo ordinario. So that's something we can decide upon later. Now, second thing, if you start from the tempo ordinario, you go through the piece, and as Leopold Mozart writes, and we have talked about that in the past already, that there are places in the piece where you can kind of find out what the composer had in mind. There is always somewhere something. And if you go here in this particular piece, you see that you have these difficult trills, because they are difficult, at the end on the last 8 notes. So for instance, and it's very early in the morning when I'm recording this, so my fingers feel not very up to playing trills, but anyway, so. See? When I was in Amsterdam in conservatory in a piano class, my teacher, Willem Brons, was a great teacher, but of course you have to adapt to certain common standards in that world. He said, those trills, you play them as you want, but you can do that. I mean, that's perfectly fine, but if you take it seriously as a trill, you need time. And also Mozart is indicating that in bar 12 here. So he wrote this legato as one part, and then a small articulation, but otherwise he wouldn't have written the bow. Then small articulation, and then the trill. And of course, one could say, yeah, you have to practice and play it, and then you can play it as fast as you want. That's not true. You need time for that. So if you take that trill seriously, that's a time frame measurement thing. So let's see what we come up then with. What would be the fastest that would... That would be possible. But now I see a chaos in my head. So all these children are playing in an unstructured way. So, and then that's a third thing. I stop following my own head. I cannot follow the music anymore. And if that happens, I slow down. Always. And I must tell you, if you are looking for a right tempo and studying, and that's a process of many days and weeks and months sometimes, even for larger pieces, then there is an... you get tempted to play faster because that's easier, because the movement is easier. When you slow down a little bit and find the right effect that you want to have, is always more difficult, because it comes with a larger palette of expression. And let me explain that. If I play this in the tempo I would envision, this E flat needs another accent, then I would play faster. If I played that fast, the movement would just throw me over that piece, over that spot, and the E flat, you wouldn't even notice that it has an accent. It's flowing from that bar structure, that's sweeping you up, you know. But then you're missing the effect. In my opinion, if you slow it a little bit down, hit the effect. So it's difficult, because if you overdo that, it's over. Hitting it right in the heart of where you want it is always the most difficult, because you need to stay on that balance line. Okay. Then you have articulations like this. There's a kind of inequality, perhaps. Talk about that later in other videos, because this one would be too long. So. And you will find other spots as well. For instance, and that's the last thing here, you can take time a little bit for these beautiful syncopations. And you have certain drums as well that are possible, of course, with practicing, but it's not very easy to play, or not very comfortable to play. So that leads us with the tempo now, I would say. Try. So let's see what tempo we have. So we have 75, 76 for the quarter note. And then two more things, and I close this video. Again, we could talk about this for ages, and on the other pieces as well. Okay, so two more things. 2/4 bar structure in that music of the classic period, I have always a feeling that it acts as a 4/8 bar structure. And that's something I thought I have read it somewhere with Leopold Mozart, but I cannot find it back, so probably it isn't there. So the great thing, having more contact now with Lorenz Gradient, who has all these sources in his head, so I asked him if he knew a source to not prove that, but just give a kind of fundamental idea of reflection on that. And he came up, and I have printed with an interesting quote that I didn't know I want to share with you, of a certain G.W. Fink, who was the, and it's written in German, I translate as good as I can. He was chief editor at the in Leipzig in the Allgemeine Musikalische Zeitung. That's the magazine that, if I'm not wrong, Robert Schumann started. And this is a quote from 1809, so later than this. But he writes about a 4/8 bar structure, which is of course literally 2/4, but composed as 2/8 quarter notes. And he makes a difference between, if you have a 2/4 bar structure and it's actually a 4/8, then you have light accents. And if you have a 2/4 bar structure with one heavy accent, you could say is a small alla breve, because you have one heavy accent. And it's an interesting quote, because if you take music of Bach, for instance, in a 2/4 bar structure, we could play the duet. I have here also the Italian concerto. I've never played this, but if you see then the 2/4 bar structure, it's a heavy, it's that alla breve kind of feel. It makes sense. Listen to it. You have one heavy da-ding, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's the really alla breve feeling, but it's not an alla breve, of course. But I've never seen it like that. If you go then, or for instance here the duet. Heavy accent on every first beat, and Mozart. It's not only a difference in style, but also an accentuation. It has much more accents and lighter accents. It's jump pa rum pam pam pa yum pam pam pa da 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 da. So that's a wonderful quote. I'm really happy that I have that, because I'm not struggling with that. I'm feeling like that in this music. So 4/8, I think it makes sense in this explanation. Then last thing I want to check is the metronome number. Here we have from Moscheles. We've been talking about metronome numbers in previous videos. We will be talking about that in much more videos from now on. So I'm happy that I've made the interview with Lorenz, because it's a treasure on information. We can, and you do whatever you want with that, with the double beat or with the single beat. But we have the information. And this is 152 for the quarter note. I'm afraid I'm not able to play that fast. So, but what interests me, I check tempi just out of curiosity, and I apply them with the Lorenz gradient, so double beat technique, which makes sense. And we're going to explain that in future videos, don't worry. So double means this. And then you see I would like to just increase the tempo. So I'm sorry to say, but that's exactly my tempo. But seriously, it happens often. Now it's just an accident. Well, we had around 70 or 72 as a tempo for ourselves, so 152 is about 76 for the quarter note. Literally, this would be something like this. I don't play it like that. It's not possible that early. I can share some footage later about how it would sound. Let's do that now. I just take my computer and I let you hear what Moscheles would sound like in a literally version of this piece. I don't think it makes sense. Okay, it probably is a longer video than I wanted to make is really a lot that one can share about finding the right movement, which is more important, remember that, than finding the right tempo. The tempo is the only really measurable indication. You cannot measure accents, you cannot measure phrasing, you cannot measure articulations, you can measure tempo, but tempo is never something that stands on its own. Also, when you're experimenting with these metronome numbers, it doesn't work just slowing down. It brings a whole culture of playing with it. So that's a process that will take months, if not years, if you want to adapt to that. So I thank you for watching. If this is your first time on this channel, I'd love to have you subscribed. We have regular videos. If you want to be stay really informed, notified, there is a bell icon next to the subscription button. Hit that bell icon. You can set your mailing preferences, of your notification preferences. If you want to have a mail or a push notification on your mobile phone, it might be handy because we are having a lot of live streams. All the YouTube recordings are being live streamed now, so when I make a YouTube recording, prepare for them. That's live streamed. We have practicing hours, so regular things. And there is a scheme for this month's project. If you watch this later or not have seen the introduction video, there's a playlist on the channel below the first playlist on the homepage, and there you can find all the videos for this month, which is based and dedicated to the München Mozart sonatas number 4, 5 and 6. Thank you for watching again, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.